we are at the end of an era here.
Couldn't have done it without you, Joe.
Yeah.
Need it.
Joey is living the dream and going off into retirement at the precise moment where he'll be all used to it and warmed up by the time we all have to go out for our first storm coverage of the year. And I was just telling him a story about how I expect a picture of him with his feet all toasty by the fire, drinking a glass of something while we're all out in the elements. Well, you guys are out in the elements, just kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's in this day and age, it's not common to see people making incredibly long, successful careers in this business. We're very fortunate to have a lot of people who do that here. For Joey, it is the end of an incredible run. It's only 2.5 years for me, so I can only say, from my point of view, you've been one of the most dependable people in this building, one of the most trustworthy, and one of the hardest working people that I've come across while I'm here. And as I was just telling you a couple minutes ago, your guidance and advice to me about planning for my future was invaluable because, I'm like, oh my God, I have not thought about any of this stuff, and I'm in my 40s and I really need to get my ass in gear. And it was actually a huge help, and seeing that you have done it right is a motivation to me to figure out my life down the road. So I really appreciate that. I also, as a former assignment editor, know when to dish out the stories and when to call in the people who really know. So I enlisted Mr. Rapley to help me give the rest of the speech because I've been told that he has spent more time with you than pretty much anybody here, and therefore is most qualified to embarrass you before we eat this cake. So I now summon Bill, the Auditing America people. Auditing America is coming to shoot this for us.
As long as he doesn't kiss me. You can kiss
Joey.
I first encountered Mr. Gazenda in 1985 at Channel 6 when he showed up with his musical background from the University of Bridgeport. And after having worked in New York City and having a little bit of big city attitude about it, but he taught me about audio editing. This guy was more precise with his audio than any other photographer I ever worked with. It was something that he was really good at, and it was an honor to work with him. We worked on some great feature stories together. And we went on a memorable road trip, is it 30 years ago? To New Orleans in 1988 for the Republican National Convention. After 4 days of working 15-hour days, Joey decided the last night that he was going to go out on Bourbon Street and go to every jazz bar on the street and compile a music video to end all music videos. I know he had a hangover to end all hangovers the next morning when we had to leave to go to the airport, and we couldn't get him out. Ann Conway was with us, right? We couldn't get him out of his hotel room. And this is the days before TSA, because we literally ran by the ticket takers and stopped them from closing the door to the runway to get to the jet, and just squeezed on as they were shutting the door to the airplane. So it's something you wouldn't do these days, but Joe was willing to carry the gear and make that effort. It's an experience driving around with Joe Gazenda because he's a very curious fellow, and there'll be times you're curious about why he is slowing down, and the people behind you don't know exactly what he's doing. But we never got many accidents. We just created a few traffic jams, and everything worked out pretty well. But I think that a recent episode that kind of tells what kind of a guy Joe is was we were doing the Kenyon Grist Mill, and there were some tourists there, and one of them came up to Joe and said, "Hey, my wife used to be in TV." And they turned around, and it turned out it was an anchor lady from New Haven, the first anchor lady, probably 40 years ago. And she remembered him, he remembered her, and that's just says what kind of an impression you give to people and why folks like you. And she was as thrilled to see you as you were to see her, and it was just a terrific kind of coming together of a 40-year career to then
Yeah,
in your
that was full
last
circle.
month. Yeah.
That was full, she bought one of my books.
And she bought one of his books. So it's been a treat working with you all these years, Joe. And there's not that many people I've worked with for that long who I'm still friends with. So.
And vice versa.
Joeyg!
I'd just like to say something that Joe caught my eye in a big way, and I talked to him about it the other day. It was a video that he had shot about opening day and trout fishing, and somehow he had a picture of he and his son fishing there in the piece, and he was teaching his son how to spit. And I thought, if you got a guy, a father, who teaches his son how to spit, it's the greatest. You know?
You want to show us how?
My mouth is too dry right now. Boy, I tell you, I'm gonna miss you guys. I think it's only deserving if I give you a brief history of what I've done. In 1979, I started at Channel 8 New Haven. Tom Kirby, the news director, who, by the way, took KUSA to #1 later on, I asked him, hey, I'd like to maybe shoot. And he said, you'd like to shoot? He said, well, then pick up a camera and bring something back. And he goes, I'll let you know what I think. So I did, and the story actually aired on a Sunday. And he came in and told me on a Monday, he said, do it one more time. So I did. And the second time he said, okay, that's what you're going to be doing. And I never flew in a plane before. It was the first time. And within that week, they had me fly out to D.C. and do a story, and it was my first flight. It was pretty out there. So I had never flown before. But I've been in helicopters year after year after year since then. Don't miss it. And so in 1981, in 79, I met Tim O'Donnell and Don O'Sullivan at the TNH. And Timmy lured me to Satellite News Channel in 1981. And 18 months later, we went black because Ted Turner was so worried about what we were doing and paid $30 million to have us go black. So we were both out of a job. Timmy left here, went to New Haven. He came back here, called me, and no, after that, I worked at BZ as an editor. I went to FSB, back to TNH. No, I didn't go to TNH. I went to WABC in New York and worked with Regis a little bit. And Timmy gave me a call and said, hey, there's a position at Channel 6 in 1985 in WLNE. So I showed up, I got the job. I was there 15 years, and then Albert Gamble helped me come here in 2000. Wow. And I made Rhode Island my home. Out of all the places I've been, this was my favorite. So I think what I'm going to do is sign off. I'm nervous. Bill, this is what you got here? This is Joeyg in Cranston, Rhode Island for WLNE, WJR. Signing off. My fellow friends, I will miss you.
He dropped the
Yeah, just ask me.
You know, well, you're the one who said Christmas and New Year's, so I mean, it's an offer. This is for you, by the way. A little something in there to make sure that you keep sending us nice pictures to chime in through turn10.com and the NBC10 app. Just reminding, on the way. But thank you very much.
Very nice.
Great. Go, Joey.
Thank you.
Joey.
See what happens when RJ tries to start a chant? Nobody joins in.